they discovered living after 80 years of being thought extinct. And they all lived under one tiny bush on the side of Ball's Pyramid in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Rising 1,844 feet from the Pacific, Ball's Pyramid, Earth's forbidden spire, was thought too barren to host anything alive. Scientists thought nature had given up on it until they climbed its cliffs and found a creature declared extinct for nearly a century, still breathing. And that survivor would end up protecting the entire rock. But that was just the beginning, because when drones flew deeper into the shadows, they captured something even more disturbing. The world's tallest sea spire, and its deadly isolation. Rising like a dagger from the ocean, Ball's Pyramid is the tallest volcanic sea stack on Earth, a 1,844-foot spear of black rock slicing through the Pacific waves, located roughly 14 miles southeast of Lord Howe Island, between Australia and New Zealand. This hauntingly narrow spire is all that remains of a shield volcano and caldera formed over 7 million years ago. Its steep, almost vertical ridges, absence of fresh water, and sheer cliffs have earned it the nickname Earth's Forbidden Spire. This place is notoriously dangerous. The pyramid is just 1,100 feet across at its base and barely supports any life. Boats often struggle to anchor near it due to powerful ocean currents, and climbing it was illegal for decades. In fact, climbing was only briefly allowed in the 1960s before being banned again in the early 1980s due to conservation efforts and high risk. Those who've dared to ascend it describe howling winds, crumbling ledges, and ghostly silence. What makes Ball's Pyramid even more mysterious is how dead it appears, or appeared.
This island portion of New South Wales in Australia with its dark black and grey coloration is clearly volcanic in origin.
For years, biologists assumed it was barren, incapable of sustaining any complex life due to its isolation and brutal conditions. Its remote location also meant few expeditions ever tried to study it in detail. Most who came either climbed it or used it for geological research. But in the cracks of this ancient rock, something impossible had survived. A strange rumor once circulated among locals and divers that people had seen huge insects crawling at night near the few bushes on the spire. These stories were often dismissed as hallucinations or misidentifications of crickets. No one believed that something important could be living in this harsh, rocky needle rising out of the sea. And yet, in 2001, two Australian researchers, David Priddle and Nicholas Carlisle, decided to investigate. What they found made headlines around the world and changed conservation biology forever.
One can clearly see the base of what was an almost unimaginably large volcanic mountain sliced off at the base like a knife.
The tree lobster, a six-legged ghost from extinction. When Priddle and Carlisle scaled the jagged face of Ball's Pyramid in 2001 under moonlight, they weren't expecting anything more than confirmation that the island was as lifeless as assumed. What they found, nestled under a single scraggly melaleuca bush just above the shoreline on the southeast face, was a nightmare-sized stick insect, jet black, about 6 inches long, clinging to the rock. And not just one. There were over 24 of them, alive and alert. They had just found Dryococulus australis, a species long believed to be extinct. Nicknamed the tree lobster due to its armored body and large pincers, this insect had once been common on nearby Lord Howe Island. But in 1918, a supply ship called the SS Macambo ran aground there and accidentally introduced black rats to the ecosystem. In just a few years, the rats devoured every known population of the insect. By 1920, scientists had declared it extinct. So how did these tree lobsters end up on Ball's Pyramid? No one knows for sure. One theory suggests a few individuals may have drifted on vegetation rafts from Lord Howe Island and miraculously survived the journey. Another theory? That they were already there long before extinction struck the mainland, but had been overlooked due to the spire's inaccessibility. the rediscovery stunned the scientific world. Here was a species thought gone for over 80 years, living in a tiny, fragile habitat the size of a bedroom. Even more remarkable, they had adapted, switching from a treetop-dwelling lifestyle to hiding under rocks for warmth and protection. Insect expert Jane Goodall called it one of the most hopeful and humbling discoveries of her career. And yet, the world nearly never heard about it. The Australian government and local conservation groups kept the rediscovery quiet for nearly 2 years, afraid that publicity would trigger illegal collection or damage to the insect's delicate habitat. But in 2003, the truth got out, and the media dubbed it the Lazarus bug. Since then, the tree lobster has also ignited new fears. How many other species are we writing off too soon?
So in some regard, hanging off the rope in the dark and not being able to see further than your hands was, in fact, a bit of an advantage.
The forbidden genetics, bringing the species back. When scientists brought back 2 mated pairs of the Lord Howe Island stick insect from Ball's Pyramid, they were staring down one of the most fragile revivals in conservation history. Just 4 out of the 24 individuals. That's all they had to rebuild an entire species. The odds were razor thin, but failure wasn't an option. The insects were placed in a high-security, climate-controlled room at the Melbourne Zoo. The environment had to be perfect: temperature, humidity, light, all carefully simulated to match the rocky crevices of Ball's Pyramid.
The Lord Howe Island phasmid became extinct on Lord Howe Island because of the influence of rats. Recently, in 2001.
The program was led by Patrick Honan, who would later describe his care routine as caring for a living relic that had already died once. To avoid stressing the females, the staff even played soothing music and used cotton-tipped swabs to simulate the rocky crevices the insects preferred. Every egg was monitored. Only about 1 in 6 eggs hatched. Then, a miracle happened. One of the females laid more than 300 eggs. By 2008, over 700 healthy tree lobsters were alive, some already being transferred to other zoos in San Diego and Toronto to ensure backup populations. The breeding program became one of the most successful insect conservation efforts in modern history. But there was a problem: genetic diversity. With only 4 founders, scientists feared a genetic bottleneck, where the gene pool is too narrow for the population to survive long-term threats. So, the next step was to sequence the full genome of the Ball's Pyramid insects. In 2018, a team led by entomologist Dr. Sasha Mikheyev of the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology did just that, and the results were shocking. The insects had higher genetic diversity than expected, suggesting they had survived longer and in greater numbers than believed, possibly in hidden corners of Ball's Pyramid for generations. The genome also revealed adaptations that allowed the insects to survive extreme dehydration, high winds, and nutrient-poor conditions, features not seen in their pre-1918 ancestors. Armed with this new genetic knowledge, scientists began preparing for the ultimate goal: reintroducing the insect to its original home, Lord Howe Island. But there was one problem still lurking on the island: rats. Eradicating them would require a full-scale baiting operation using aerial drops and ground bait stations. In 2019, the Lord Howe Island Board declared the rat eradication campaign a success. If follow-up ecological surveys confirm the long-term removal, it could pave the way for one of the rarest and most inspiring events in conservation biology: the full restoration of a species once thought lost forever.
The Lord Howe Island stick insect was thought to be extinct until a colony was discovered on Ball Pyramid.
The ancient clues, hidden in guano. Could Ball's Pyramid hold more survivors? One of the most overlooked aspects of Ball's Pyramid is what the insects were found living under.
This is Ball's Pyramid, and it juts out of the Pacific Ocean.
A fragile bush growing in a crevice piled with decades, possibly centuries, of bird guano. To many, that detail may seem minor, but to scientists studying island ecosystems, this was a massive clue. Guano, bird droppings rich in nitrogen and phosphorus, is often the only source of soil and nutrients on bare volcanic islands. And where guano accumulates, life tends to follow. But here's where things get wild. In recent surveys around the southern cliffs of Ball's Pyramid, conservationists found signs that other invertebrate species might also be present, species never documented or described.
Newest Lord Howe Island stick insect. We're hoping that they will be the stock that then come back to Lord Howe Island.
Microscopic scans of guano samples retrieved from the cracks where the tree lobsters lived revealed DNA traces from mites, fungi, and a possibly unknown species of soil-dwelling nematode. These aren't exotic creatures to most, but in isolated ecosystems, even the tiniest organism could be endemic, unique, and crucial to the survival of others. Even more fascinating, in the deepest recesses of some rock fissures, small abandoned insect exoskeletons were discovered, none matching the tree lobster's DNA. These brittle remains are now being analyzed by entomologists who believe they may belong to another phasmid species, perhaps an evolutionary cousin to Dryococcus australis that once shared the pyramid, and may still. If that's true, it would mean Ball's Pyramid isn't just a last refuge, but a living time capsule, a vertical arc of evolutionary relics sealed off from modern ecosystems.
This island portion of New South Wales in Australia with its dark black and grey coloration is clearly volcanic in origin.
There's a growing scientific push to launch a drone-assisted exploration of the deeper fissures and vertical rock crevices of Ball's Pyramid, using ultralight tethered micro-drones equipped with thermal and motion sensors. Some researchers argue that the most biologically interesting parts of the Spire still haven't been reached by human hands or eyes. These expeditions are complicated, however, by the site's extreme winds, crumbling basalt edges, and protected status. This new angle has inspired whispers in both scientific and fringe communities that Ball's Pyramid may still be hiding biological secrets we've never imagined. Some even speculate that the insect population we found might be just one branch of a deeper ecosystem clinging to existence in the labyrinth of cracks and ledges.
As the tree lobster is one of the rarest and most fascinating insects in the world.
That spiral down the pyramid's uncharted sides. As one ecologist put it, if a 6-inch armored insect could survive here, what could live in the parts we've never even looked at? Ball's Pyramid in satellite shadows. The strange signals. No one can explain. While most of the attention surrounding Ball's Pyramid focuses on its biological mystery, there's a lesser-known anomaly that has quietly stirred debate among scientists and satellite imaging analysts for over a decade. Ball's Pyramid casts digital shadows that don't always add up. In 2013, researchers analyzing high-resolution satellite imagery from Digital Globe, now Maxar Technologies, noticed something strange. During multiple imaging passes over the region, Ball's Pyramid occasionally exhibited thermal readings and shadow outlines inconsistent with its known structure. In some frames, the spire appeared taller than recorded, and in others, its heat signature fluctuated wildly, as if something beneath the rock was absorbing and radiating energy. Initially, it was dismissed as sensor interference or oceanic distortion, but the anomalies persisted. In 2016, a small team of geospatial analysts from the University of New South Wales cross-referenced the thermal imaging data with geological surveys,
which they collect every 2 to 3 days. And what we know is that bats are ravenous eaters, so the quantity here is huge.
And uncovered something bizarre, a repeating thermal pulse coming from the pyramid's northeastern base, occurring roughly every 11 to 13 days. It wasn't volcanic. There are no active lava tubes, and it didn't match solar heating cycles. The pulses were small, localized, and lasted less than an hour. Yet, they were real enough to register consistently on multiple sensors, from satellites to passing drone flyovers. This prompted quiet speculation. Could there be a geothermal pocket beneath Ball's Pyramid that we've never mapped? Or worse, are we looking at biological heat signatures? Something living, hidden deep within the rock? The Australian government, responsible for managing the Lord Howe Island Group World Heritage Area, issued no public statement, but internal emails leaked in 2019 suggested that limited drone scans were approved to investigate surface fissures showing intermittent heat. The results of those scans have never been released. This has led to all kinds of fringe theories, from dormant volcanic microchambers to alien monitoring stations. But the most grounded theory is no less intriguing, that Ball's Pyramid may be venting warm air from hidden inner caverns created millions of years ago during its caldera collapse. If true, those caverns could hold humidity, warmth, and nutrient buildup, enough to support small, undiscovered ecosystems. Some even believe that the insects found in 2001 might not be the only survivors, just the only ones visible on the surface.
In the Pacific Ocean between Australia and New Zealand, that is home to the world's rarest insect.
If inner caverns exist, they could be hosting entire microbiomes, unseen, untouched, and possibly tens of thousands of years old. So far, no official expedition has confirmed these thermal pulses on the ground, but amateur satellite watchers still track the area obsessively, noting when the heat blips occur. On Reddit and specialized biology forums, threads emerge every few months with questions like, why does Ball's Pyramid glow every 2 weeks? No one has the answer. What's certain is this: Ball's Pyramid is no ordinary rock. It has saved a species from extinction, challenged everything we assumed about isolation biology, and now, possibly, hints at something stirring beneath its stone skin, something still hidden, still waiting. The night the sky turned red, bioluminescence, around Ball's Pyramid. In early April 2020, a group of sailors passing near Ball's Pyramid during a night navigation leg en route to New Zealand witnessed something startling. The ocean around the Spire began to glow. Not just a shimmer, but a massive bloom of eerie, glowing red and blue lights stretching for hundreds of meters in every direction. At first, they suspected marine bioluminescence, a known phenomenon caused by dinoflagellates. But something felt off. These experienced sailors reported that the glow seemed to pulsate in rhythm with the ocean current, forming spiraling patterns that radiated outward from the base of Ball's Pyramid itself. Even more strange, their navigation instruments began flickering.
But it's beyond just history. It's a very rich connection that Sudanese have to these places.
And their digital compasses temporarily lost calibration. They documented the event with smartphones and thermal drones. But when they submitted their findings to local authorities, they were told it was likely planktonic activity stirred by undersea turbulence. But not everyone bought that. Within weeks, marine biologists from the University of Tasmania launched a remote spectroanalysis project, analyzing light reflection data from archived satellite imagery captured during the same time. What they found was strange. The light emission wavelength recorded was not consistent with known planktonic bioluminescence. Instead of the typical blue-green hues of Noctiluca scintillans, sea sparkle, the glow around Ball's Pyramid exhibited deep crimson and violet tones, with a shortwave ultraviolet trace signature, something no common marine organism is known to produce at that scale. Some researchers proposed a theory that previously unknown deep-sea microbial colonies, possibly descendants of species that originated in hydrothermal vents, were disturbed by shifting geological pressures below Ball's Pyramid. These microbes, under specific environmental triggers, could be producing rare bioluminescent reactions as a survival mechanism. If true, this would represent the first recorded instance of vent-like microbial light emission in a non-vent environment. But here's where the theory gets weirder. Historical ship logs from as far back as 1897, kept by whalers and fishing trawlers navigating the South Pacific, record multiple nights where the waters near Ball's Pyramid glowed like ghost fire. Some logs described it as a boiling glow beneath the keel. Others claimed their compasses spun wild for hours, forcing them to steer by starlight. These logs were previously dismissed as sailor folklore, until now. So, Is Ball's Pyramid merely a jagged rock? Or is it part of a larger biogeological system capable of influencing its surrounding marine life in ways we still don't understand? Today, several expeditionary vessels are being planned to revisit Ball's Pyramid under strict environmental protocols, with sensor arrays, underwater drones, and light spectrum detectors. Some hope to finally identify the microbial source of the red-blue glow. Others believe this anomaly could help answer deeper questions about Earth's Precambrian microbial ancestry, and whether isolated zones like Ball's Pyramid are hiding ancient biochemical lineages thought extinct for billions of years. The lost caves of Lord Howe. Did the tree lobster once rule a hidden underground world? As the world focused on Ball's Pyramid, a lesser-known mystery lingered quietly just 14 miles away on Lord Howe Island, the original home of the now famous tree lobster. In the aftermath of the insect's rediscovery, scientists began a new line of inquiry. Not just how the insect survived on Ball's Pyramid, but where they might have once thrived on Lord Howe, and what else might be hidden there.
Oh, look, really is a fascinating story. These insects were found on Ball's Pyramid in 2001.
Enter the karst cave systems, a sprawling network of limestone chambers and sinkholes riddling Lord Howe Island's Mount Gower and Mount Lidgebird. First partially explored in the 1930s by geologist Paul Marshall, these caves were largely forgotten due to difficult access and thick rainforest canopy. But recent mapping using LiDAR and ground-penetrating radar has revealed a shocking extent. Over 3 miles of connected subterranean passageways, many of which remain completely sealed off by collapses or unexplored vertical shafts. In 2021, researchers from the University of Sydney and the Australian Speleological Federation revisited the site, collecting subfossil insect fragments, including one unmistakable armored leg belonging to Dryococcus australis.
The Lord Howe Island stick insect was thought to be extinct until a colony was discovered on Ball Pyramid.
Carbon dating placed it at over 900 years old, suggesting the tree lobster had lived and possibly colonized large portions of the cave systems long before human or rat interference. More chillingly, sediment samples inside one cave showed extremely high concentrations of insect pheromone residues, implying the presence of a large, dense, self-contained breeding colony. It wasn't just that these insects lived in caves, they may have been cave specialists, thriving in total darkness and feeding off fungal growths, nourished by guano drips and decaying vegetation washed in by floods. Some researchers now propose that when rats were introduced in 1918, the tree lobsters didn't just die out. They retreated underground, possibly surviving for decades in these hidden refuges, unreachable and unseen. That could mean the Ball's Pyramid population wasn't a random outpost, but one of many fragmented survivors scattered across the island chain.
It used to live on Lord Howe's Island, which is where it got its name. It's a larger island that's about 11 kilometers away from Ball's Pyramid.
This has reignited interest in conducting a full bioexploration of the Lord Howe cave system, using robotic micro-rovers equipped with humidity sensors, pheromone detectors, and low-light cameras. But the stakes are high. These caves are ecologically fragile, and introducing foreign materials could harm whatever remains inside. So far, the expedition is still in planning stages, shrouded in secrecy to protect against biopiracy or media leaks. And the biggest question remains, if the caves still hold life, is it still Dryococcus australis, or something else entirely? Some speculate that the evolutionary pressures in complete darkness could have triggered morphological changes, creating a new subspecies adapted for cave life. Longer antennae, reduced vision, altered pigmentation, a kind of shadow lobster evolved in silence beneath the earth, awaiting rediscovery just like its cousin on Ball's Pyramid. What else could be clinging to life in Earth's forgotten corners? Subscribe now and tell us, What do you think is still out there?